guess, thinking about that, how do we take those individual patients that are in our practice and being presented to you, and how do we actually then start to try to think about insurance coverage? I mean, where do you start?
Well, I think patients don't know a lot about what is covered and what is not, and I think understanding what's covered under their pharmacy plan versus the plan, part of the plan that pays me, the portion that might be for durable goods, which would include the Hyperhidrosis technology, all of this is extremely foreign to the patients I care for, and I understand it. Insurance is very complicated. In my practice, my medical school will not allow me to treat with Botox and bill and hope that I will get paid. I actually have to write a prescription for the patient, get that covered through their pharmacy benefits, have it shipped to my office. There's a lot of complicated portions in this management scheme. We're willing to do it because it's such a favorable impact and outcome for the patients that we treat. But I don't know that everyone is willing to undertake that. I think insurance is one of the biggest obstacles we still need to work on, and I hope that with better education for our colleagues within that realm, we'll be able to smooth much of this out and more readily offer these options for our patients.
And we're actually starting to see some insurance plans that will no longer cover the drug of botulinum toxin, but will cover the injection.
Yes, we see that too.
And that's really been a new challenge. It seems like every time we make a few steps forward, we've got a little step backward, so we just have to keep marching on. What do you think is going to be the coverage for these new, hopefully emerging therapies, like with the glycopyrronium tosylate? Hopefully that will get approval soon.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to come down to where the company prices the drug. I think a lot of the onus is on us to prove the need, and I think we have a lot of wonderful data, a lot of it generated by the International Hyperhidrosis Society. We need to prove the point that this is not just a medical condition, but a disabling one. But I think it's going to depend on a couple different players. And we kind of been harping on this. Access to care, and that includes the medications, is a significant issue now. I'm also worried that, let's say it's not well covered, will that stymie further innovation? Will other companies say, well, hey, if we put all this money in and we get it out, we get through the FDA process, those hurdles, hooray for us. Will it even be covered in the sense that will insurance carriers actually put it into the standard formulary, or will be a second tier type drug, and really the copay will be astronomical for the patient.
And one of the issues really with this is that hyperhidrosis is a lifelong disease. And so we're trying to think about management and therapy that is safe and effective over a lifetime as physicians and healthcare providers. And as payers, you're also trying to think of what the cost is over the lifetime. This is not just a short-term, 6 months, 1 year, make some lifestyle changes, lose some weight, change your diet, and it's going to be treated. So this really has become an issue because of how long this, it is lifelong. So I'm curious, Andy, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think from a payer perspective, we try to look at a population health-based approach and looking at the clinical data that's there, the peer-reviewed literature, looking at guidelines, both from a national and a local level, to see what's the best approach to therapy. And I think from that perspective, we look at that and try to develop and engage our local experts, people that we use internally, besides the national associations, and develop our own, I don't want to say guideline, but really a pathway for what's the best way to approach it. We know it's not going to hit 100% of all patients, but it's going to hopefully hit the majority of those patients. We develop some kind of sequence of therapy from that process. And as you mentioned earlier, there's always going to be additive process or sequences that go forward. So we're really looking at how that process works. So when we look at these new emerging therapies, how are we going to evaluate them? It'd be very similar we would with any new drug that comes out in terms of a pharmacy and therapeutics approach, but we'll look at that data and engage our experts to determine what's the best positioning for this and how it would work. But I think, as you mentioned, this is something new to us. This is not something that's not like cardiovascular disease or diabetes that we've known about forever and how to manage it. This is new, it's additive therapy, it's new additional costs, and there's not really a direct cost offset for the payer. So how are we going to manage this, and what's the best way to do it? So we're going to take some type of logical, stepwise approach to be able to manage this therapy long term.
right? It's a new, and there really are not any labs to follow, right? So you can't say, wow, what a great success, we got that glucose down to this, or the hemoglobin A1C or whatever. So I think it is going to take a new thought process from all of us to really understand how to provide quality, safe, effective care for the patient. And that's reasonable for society and healthcare to cover. I hopefully look forward to the day where patients are not embarrassed to even come in and speak to their physicians or healthcare providers, right? We're still facing that issue today where patients are too embarrassed to talk about their sweating with their own physician. And that just amazes me that that still goes on in this day and age. So I look forward to that, and I don't know exactly how we'll overcome all of that, but that really is the first step, getting people to realize that, as you mentioned, it's not because they didn't shower, they didn't do something right, they're dirty, they're lazy. They've got this medical condition. And I would imagine, the future for you in terms of prescribing therapy might be where you don't have to go through multiple prior auth processes involving multiple staff and
From your mouth to God's ears, that'd be wonderful. I'm sure my staff would really appreciate that.
so I guess,
If I could, I think that's one of the gaps we're seeing now is that we have lots of therapy options and they've all been proven to be very effective and safe, even labeled or unlabeled. But I think that's the gap where we're not seeing that combination of additive therapies in the literature that allows payers to evaluate that to understand. We still look at it as a siloed-based approach because that's what the literature shows. So I think as we move forward, having these types of discussions and these types of forums allows that to be able to move in a direction where we can better treat the patient and understand the real value behind it. And I think that's where healthcare is now moving is toward, rather than a segment-based approach or a widget-based reimbursement system, is that we're looking at the value for the patient and what value therapies can bring overall.
Yeah, that is really so important. And we've been trying to design some studies looking at this, but they're so complicated. We've never been able to. I just spent an hour with one of our statisticians, and it was we haven't gotten it knocked out yet for that. I also think we need more assistance from our patients to more freely verbalize how this disease affects them when they're in the office. So I know all of us have had this experience where you're talking to a teenager or a college student and you're asking, how does this impact your quality of life? And of course the first thing is, I have to wear black. I can't wear pink or blue or other things. And they're so focused on that they are unable to really process what's driving that, not just the end result that I'm embarrassed to wear a blue shirt, a light blue shirt. And so I look to the day when they can freely, just tell us how it's actually affecting their lives, in the classroom, at work, with loved ones, and for them to understand it. And, I usually just look at the teenager and say, do you think your insurance really cares what color shirt you wear? I mean, really. And if you can only wear black, maybe move to a city where black is in vogue. You need to think about the ways that it's impacting your career. And I always think about all the future little Babe Ruths that aren't being developed because they can't hold on to the bat or they can't, do different things, and what the world is missing from some of these very bright kids and patients with hyperhidrosis. And my ongoing joke is that they all need to become swimmers. And they kind of laugh and think, yeah, but what are you going to do for me? That's not going to happen.